part of the mill was originally a separate mill for making this cloth called Swan Skin. It was thick, dense, very warm, and shed water, in a time, of course, when waterproofs were unheard of.
You're listening to Come Here, the podcast for and about heritage attractions, where you can discover somewhere worth visiting. I'm your host, Dr. Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist with a background in archaeology, specialising in voiceover for the heritage sector. Each week, I chat to someone from a different museum, historic site, gallery or cultural space about why you should visit, and exactly what you can expect when you get there. Pete Loosmore is the miller at Sturminster Newton Mill. Although he's in his 80s, Pete is still a regular volunteer there. And it turns out milling is actually in his family. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Pete.
Hello there. Yeah, hello. Nice to hear from you.
Now, Pete, you're part of the Sturminster Newton Heritage Trust. Can you tell me what that encompasses?
Well, it looks after Sturminster Newton Mill, which is a very old mill situated on the River Stour, just outside Sturminster town. And we also have a small museum, which we look after as well.
And can you tell me what your role is?
Well, my role initially, when I started being involved with the mill, was as a supervisor. But as the mill progressed and got a little bit organised, it had run down a little bit. As we got reorganised, I found that I was very interested in everything that was going on and gradually became a miller. So I went on courses and so on and developed a certain amount of skills to look after the whole of the mill and became the miller who made the flour there.
So how long have you done that for now?
Just over 30 years.
And did you have any experience of milling at all before you went on these courses?
Nothing direct. The only connection I had was that my grandfather was actually the miller in Sturminster Newton Mill from, it would be about 1894 through till about 1946, I believe.
Yeah. So you were familiar with the mill beforehand then?
I knew it from my young days, but when they advertised and wanted someone else to take over, as I say, originally as a supervisor, just to keep an eye on the place, I applied for the job, and I think it was assumed that because grandfather had been there, I knew something about milling, and I didn't actually. I must confess that I didn't actually confess at the time that I knew nothing about milling. So they gave me the job, and I had to learn fairly quickly from that point onwards.
Yes. How does one learn to be a miller? What do you learn on the courses?
It's all to do with the machinery, of course, and trying to adjust machines in order to make a good quality flour from grain. So it's everything from heaving about big sacks of grain and so on through to making sure that everything is clean and tidy and making sure that the machinery is running as smoothly as possible.
Yeah. So how old is the mill at Sturminster Newton?
Well, that's an interesting point because originally when we first started it was believed that it was built somewhere around about 1650. But I would imagine it would be about 8 years ago now that a couple of our friends who help us out, we rely quite a lot on volunteers, they got fed up with some paint which kept peeling off the wall at the back end of the mill, off of a large stone that was there. So they said, let's clean it up and we'll get it repainted. It had layers and layers of good old thick old-fashioned whitewash on it, lime wash I guess. It was flaking a bit, so they cleaned it up. As we cleaned it up, there was obviously some graffiti underneath. Nobody knew it was there. But then right in the middle of this stone was the date 1566. So we assume that that's the last time it was rebuilt.
Yeah. Wow.
That came as a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. But I guess there's probably been a mill on that site even longer than that, has there?
Oh, yes, yeah. The first we know of it was in 1016. So it's over 1,000 years. And we know then because the king at the time, he would, can't remember which one it was now, but he gave it to Glastonbury Abbey in 1016. And then later on in the Domesday Book, it's mentioned that there were 4 mills at what was then called it was then called Newton Castle rather than Sturminster. And the reference in the Domesday Book says that at Newton Castle there are 4 mills, of which the abbot owns 3. So we are pretty sure that Sturminster Newton mill was one of them.
Yes. So tell me what people can see these days when they come to the mill.
A fully working mill. We have machinery which is working, and many pieces of it are belt-driven. Let me see, it would be the second weekend of each month. We tend to have a milling weekend, so we make sure that we are up and running and making flour at that stage. But even when we're not actually milling, we can run all the machinery, explain fairly clearly what happens at which stage in the mill. It's all run by a fairly recent turbine, but by recent I mean that it was put in just over 100 years ago, and it's a turbine, so it still runs on water, but it's a much more efficient way of using water than the old-fashioned water wheel that was originally at the mill.
And how much flour do you make?
Let me see. We tend to take it fairly easily because we're aware that some of the machinery is quite old in there. So we reckon to make probably, something like about 500 or 600 weights over a weekend.
And what do you do with it?
Sell it. Yes, we have a clientele. Even this morning I was down at the mill and 2 or 3 people came in and said, "Oh, have you got some more of your flour?" We came back and we had some last year, or we had some earlier in the season, and we made some nice bread with it, and can we have some more? So we don't have very much trouble in getting rid of it. And, we get through something like a 1.5 tons or so of grain during a season.
Yeah. So can you take me through the process? What happens to the grain once it arrives at your mill?
Well, it arrives on the ground floor. It's a 3-storied building. So it arrives on the ground floor. It's then hoisted to the top of the mill, where there are very large bins. We haven't actually checked on this, but we've been told in the past that it will hold something like about 60 tons of grain in the roof of the building. Then the first thing we do is to pass it down through a machine called a winnower, and that cleans the grain partly by sieving and partly by blowing lightweight stuff like the husk and the straw out of it. And that's all run or fed by gravity, so the gravity drops it all the way back down through the mill, through the machine, finishes up on the ground floor once again, and then we hoist it to the top of the mill again, and it's then ready, nice and clean, all the rubbish taken out of it, husk, straw, odd bits of stone, believe it or not, sweet wrappers that have been thrown out of car windows and so on. But it all gets picked up by the combine harvester, so all that gets taken out by the winnower. And the second time the grain goes to the top of the mill, it's all ready to drop down through the millstones, feeds down through those, gets ground up into flour, and finishes up once again on the bottom floor of the mill. So it's the energy created by the water flow through the turbine, which takes everything up and runs the machinery, and it's gravity that brings it all back down again.
Yeah. So is there much maintenance to do?
Not too badly. Most of it is good old-fashioned Victorian machinery, very largely. So it's been made to last, to be honest. And as long as we keep greasing and oiling the appropriate joints and so on in the machinery, seems to work very well. We have had one or two changes of pieces of machinery, but they've only been very minor changes, and we've done pretty well, really, over the last 30 years.
Yeah. So do you run the mill all on your own, or do you have people helping you?
We have helpers. We have a little army of volunteers who come in and help out. Some of them are able to just sit at the desk and take the money for people coming in and anything that we sell and so on. Others of our volunteers get a bit more involved and find themselves helping to show people around the mill, talk to them about the mill, especially if the current or the miller who happens to be on duty at the time is rather busy.
Yeah.
So it's quite a team effort, really.
Yeah. And so are people guided around the mill then, or are they able to just wander about on their own?
Well, both, really. We suggest that they do what we call a talkabout, where we do... I suppose you'd call it a guided tour, but we try to make sure that we talk to people on the tour rather than just give a sort of directions or as if we were sort of quoting from a pre-arranged script. We don't like that. So we talk to people, and that means that no two tours are the same, really, because different people are interested in different aspects. Some like to know about the social side of the miller's life and where he lived and where the grain came from and so on. Other people are more interested in the machinery itself and how it works and what it does and so on. So we try to vary our talk as we go around.
Yeah. And is it family friendly? Do you cater for children?
Oh yes, yeah. We've had children in this morning, and we try to cover everybody if we can, but unfortunately it's not very easy to get disabled access to the mill because, of course, it's being 450 years old, quite difficult to get anything like a wheelchair to go around any parts of the mill, really.
Yeah.
But if we do get a wheelchair client coming in, then we make sure that we don't charge them, and we try to explain everything that they can't see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I presume it's not a good place for dogs?
Well, we don't mind dogs, but the main problem with a dog is getting up and down rather steep and difficult stairs.
Yeah.
And one or two dogs have got up and don't want to come back down again and so on. But when we're making flour, we discourage dogs from coming in.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if the owner is prepared to lift them up the stairs or lift them down the stairs, then we can show them most of the mill, including the dog as well.
So how long should people allow for a visit, Pete?
Round about 3/4 of an hour, I think. But it depends partly on how people react to our tour. So, some people will join in and chat very happily. Occasionally you get people who just want to listen, really, and don't give back anything in return. So that shortens the time that we go round. Yeah.
Do you have a cafe or a shop?
Well, we have a shop which sells very largely local stuff, wherever we can, all sorts of bits and pieces, and very, very varied. But not a big shop, but a very varied shop, I should think, and so that works quite well. We don't really have a cafe, but we do have some chairs and tables that we put outside, and we can supply simple drinks, cold drinks, and tea, coffee, and that sort of thing. And we have a few biscuits for sale. But quite a number of people bring their own sandwiches and sit outside and enjoy the riverside leisure area, you know.
Yeah,
It's
you're in a beautiful
sort of picnic
spot,
area.
aren't you? I've seen pictures. It does look lovely there, Pete.
Oh yes, I mean we're very lucky. It's a very picturesque mill. If you go across the bridge and walk over onto the meadow the other side, it's a lovely view back across towards the mill and the reflections in the mill pond and so on. And of course, with any luck at all, see a bit of wildlife there as well.
Yeah. So do you have any special events on during the year?
Yes, we have. We have sort of picnic times. We've had all sorts in the past. Sometimes we repeat them, sometimes we don't. But we have cream teas. We have had. Let me see. Got to stop and think about this because it's been a bit varied. But we've had the Hardy players there doing a scene or two outside the mill, and it makes a good background for them. And we also join up with the local, well, we have recently joined up with the local school to try to bring our knowledge of the swan skin industry up to date. And that's because part of the mill was originally a separate mill for making this cloth called swan skin.
Ah.
Have you heard of that?
I haven't, so tell me more,
No.
Pete.
Well, one section of the mill, if anyone visits the mill, they'll find that it's an L-shaped building, and part of the L shape was originally a separate mill from about 1600 roughly through till 1800, and it was what was known as a fulling mill. So it took in a local cloth called, it was simply a white woollen cloth which was brought in, and the fulling process meant that the cloth was soaked in various liquids and then hammered really heavily, so you got a really thick, dense, white woolen felt. Now, that was white, and it was so densely felted that it tended to shed water, so it was called swan skin. Nothing to do with injuring swans or anything like that, I hasten to add, but it was, as I say, thick, dense, very warm, and shed water in a time, of course, when waterproofs were unheard of. So almost all of it was taken from Sturminster and taken down to Poole, shipped across to the very early days of Newfoundland, where the fishing industry made its clothing from it. So, so there were great tie-ups between Sturminster area and the Newfoundland explorers, really, who first went over there and started using or fishing for the cod. And so the cod were salted and brought back to this country by the same boats.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So that was very much a local industry, and so we've teamed up with the local school. Let me see, would be about 2-3 years ago now, and with modern technology, they could get in touch with schools over there.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of the children over there realise that their sort of grandparents, great-grandparents and so on originated from the Sturminster area and went over with the trade. So there's been a good, strong link established quite recently.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So when is the mill open? Are you open all year round?
No, we're only open through the summer months. We usually open up around about the end of March, just about the last weekend in March. Hopefully that's a little bit before Easter, and it gives us a chance to sort of run the machinery back in again and get it in, check that it's in good working order. And then we close down at the end of September. Almost entirely because we get flooded in the winter time, and so end of September, everything that moves on the bottom floor gets hauled upstairs, and that makes a certain amount of chaos, of course. So we can't really show people around very easily.
Yeah, and what times is the mill open?
Whenever we're open between 11 and 5. So we open 4 days a week. That's Saturday, Sunday, Monday and Thursday. And as I say, 11 till 5 each day.
And is there a cost to coming in?
Yeah, we charge £5 to go around the mill. And that's irrespective of whether you have a tour around or whether you just go and have a look around on your own.
Yeah. But, so what do you love most about the mill and your job there, Pete?
Oh, I don't know. Perhaps I shouldn't say this, but one of the really nice things I have to admit is that around about June, it's often fairly quiet. We've had the 2 bank holidays. June goes a bit quiet before the children break up from school. So we get very often half an hour perhaps sometimes, without really seeing any visitors. And to go outside, sit on the wall, sun shines nicely in June, and watch the wildlife. We might see an otter, we might see an egret, or various other bits and pieces of wildlife down there. Occasionally it's a mink, not so happy about those. Swans, ducks and so on, kingfishers. Sit on the wall for half an hour and have a little bit of a breather. It's a lovely place. It's very picturesque and so on. And as I say, I probably shouldn't look at it that way, but I must admit it's a really big bonus for doing that job.
That sounds idyllic, Pete.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being my guest and telling me all about the mill. And it sounds like a truly lovely place.
Well, I think it is, but then I am a bit biased.
Thanks for listening to Come Here. If you know a heritage attraction that would love to be featured, or you have a suggestion for somewhere you'd like me to cover, I'd love to hear from you. To find my email address and find out more about me, pop to my website at lizdrury.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe, rate and review the show. It really helps other people to find it. See you next time, and come and discover somewhere else worth visiting.